Hello, it's Pete here, and today I'm going to talk to you about 3 wonderful embossing folders from Tim Holtz Everyday Collection. I'm going to show you 3 techniques to kind of get the best out of these folders. The first one is called Entangled. Now, this one, it's kind of William Morris. It's, it's got that kind of arts and crafts thing. It's great for your vintage makes. Then secondly, we have Mosaic. Now, this one, and all of these have been done using Sizzix luster waxes, incidentally, to bring out that wonderful, wonderful detail. And when I say detail, I'm talking about insane levels of detail here. So that's Mosaic. It's kind of like crazy paving. And then last but not least, this one is called Dotted. Now, this used with color, used as a background, is incredible. You can pretty much put anything with this. And if we turn them over, this is what they look like when they're embossed using Sizzix Opulent cardstock. This is the rose gold matte. So there are 5 different surfaces in the rose gold alone. So let's crack on with some techniques. So today I'm going to be using my trusty Tim Holtz branded Foldaway machine. Now this, if you're familiar with the Big Shot, then this you'll know all about. It's a very slim version. It's called the Foldaway because if you have limited space, you want to pop this on a shelf, then it folds away. You just pull out the sides like that, snap them in place, and it's ready to go. Now, when you are 3D embossing, you simply remove the wafer-thin die adapter and you use one single cutting plate. So, important to note, I know that I do show you this every time, but to get the best out of these, it's best to spritz the cardstock with just some water. That's all. And what this does, it soaks into the card, it softens the fibers, allows them to stretch, and you get a much cleaner, deeper emboss as a result. So I'll just pop that to one side for a second and grab one of my 3 embossing folders. So this is Entangled. Remember, 3 embossing folders in the collection, so much more besides. I'll tell you a little bit about that towards the end. And so the card's in the folder, on the platform, single cutting plate, and then let's turn this around. So we'll run that through, and to get best results, we say at least twice through the machine. That will give you a much deeper, much clearer emboss. So we'll just pop the machine to one side. And there we have it. It really is quite staggering, the levels of emboss. I know it's difficult to see here, but that's why we're going to show you the techniques to get the best out of this. You can use your opulent cards, you can work on white card, you can work on black card like this, which is what I'm doing today. This is all about the black card today. So, what I'm going to do is we'll take this, and I want to bring that detail out. I really want it to sing through. So I've got a pigment ink pad here, a white pigment ink pad, and I'm using some foam on my Sizzix blending tool. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go in there, lift off some of that ink, and what I like about this, it gives a kind of, it's quite a ghostly effect. It's a wonderful vintage effect, but you start off light. Always start light. If you need to add more, you can add more. But we want all the cracks, all the gaps in between, we want that to stay black, and that will give us the contrast that we're looking for. And there we have it. It's a really, really subtle effect. Absolutely gorgeous. And I know not many people use pigment inks. We used to use distress inks and so on and so forth, but with the pigment inks, particularly white on black, you get this gorgeous effect. Very, very simple to do. Even if you're not used to these kinds of things, you can get results exactly like this straight off. So next up, we're going to be using the dotted folder. As I said, this one is very versatile indeed. It lends itself to a lot of different making styles. But today, I'm going to be using our wonderful Sizzix luster waxes to give it a kind of industrial opulence. And with luster waxes, what I'm going to do, we've got two new colors, incidentally. If you haven't seen them before, we've got the graphite and we've got this lovely sort of, it's an ivory. It's pearlescent, it's gorgeous. And the way that these five work together now is phenomenal. And I'm going to start with the graphite. This is a color, I'm so happy that we brought this into our range. And you'll notice that I'm working on a piece of spare card. This is almost my palette. It just means that I don't get too much on my finger. And I get a lovely even coat. So with this one, I'm going to go in quite heavy. I want some of the black showing through in between these little areas, and as you probably notice, this folder, the dotted, it is 3D, but it's a multi-level folder. That's a slightly different thing, but you get the same phenomenal results. Now, this is the base coat. It's the darkest. It's a lovely, as the name suggests, graphite. It's a lovely, deep, metallic grey. So I go in much heavier with the base color, and as the colors get lighter and lighter and lighter, I'm going to add less and less and less. And with the rose gold and the gold and the silver, I'm just going to pick out certain areas. I'm not going to flood the whole folder. That's quite important for the effect that I'm trying to get here. So there we are. You can see the variation there. You can see how we've come in stronger with the rose gold in some areas, stronger with the silver, and the ivory it kind of just, it unifies it. It gives it that lovely sort of pearlescent luster as well. It's absolutely gorgeous. Of course, this is an industrial look with this using distress inks, distress oxides, any of your favorite techniques, or just on plain white card. Makes a stunning background for all occasions. Next up, it's time for Mosaic. Now, to bring out the stonework, I always find dry brushing is the best way to get a really naturalistic effect. And down here, I've got like a deep blue gray, a pale grey, and we've got some greens and ochres as well to give it a more organic feel afterwards. The difference that they will make, crazy, but we'll see that. We've also got some ivory, but I'm going to bring that in towards the end. Now when you're dry brushing, people have different preferences. I prefer a medium-sized brush like this with a relatively flat head. Now it's always good to start off with just a little on the brush, not too much. As we said before, you can always add more if needs be. So you can see it start to pick out, and you know, the level of detail that Tim demands from his embossing folders really makes all the difference. Each one of these stones is individual in itself. It's not like we've taken one stone and just repeat. They're all different. The detail in each one is different. Just really, really cool. And those differences that Tim puts into his work makes a big difference to the results at the end of the day. So that's the darkest color. We always go from dark to light, and I'm going to bring in the lighter gray. It doesn't matter if these mix together, that's fine. And you can see I'm going slightly lighter in my strokes because we don't want to completely cover that dark gray. We just want to start picking up the highlights so we get the contrast between the black, the deep gray, and the lighter gray. Okay, so that's the green and the kind of the ochre mustard color added. You can see it makes a big difference. It does make it look far more organic. Now I'm going to use the cream next, and I'm reaching into my Sizzix tool caddy to take one of the heads. Now, if you haven't seen the Sizzix toolkits, please go to the website and have a look at those. This one is from the mixed media set, which includes another palette knife and a brayer head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spritz with a little bit of water over that cream, and I'm going to start mixing it together until I let a sort of a creamy consistency. So once I've got that, I can hold the end of my palette knife, and this really does make all of the difference. You can even add a darker color, a black if you wish. It's a technique I enjoy using, and using a palette knife like this, it's great for controlling this technique because sometimes it can be random. I mean, it's still random, but it's controlled chaos, I like to think. And there we have it, folks. So from black card a couple of minutes ago, we've turned that into a really realistic stone mosaic. So there we have it, 3 really quick, simple techniques, but they turn a simple embossing folder into something quite stunning. I've got a couple of examples here of how we've used it with some cards. That is the Entangled folder that's using the pigment ink, as we saw a little while ago. You know, we can go with white card. This started off, I inked a piece of card, various colors, and then went just over the top with some vintage photos to get that kind of really punchy, colorful vintage sort of vibe. Then a lovely mosaic again. You can see here as well, I use some deep red. So that's kind of like, you know, there's iron in the stone and it's coming through, but it gives a wonderful contrast. This one is just very simple. It's just 2 grays and the ivory over the top, but we've also used one of Tim's wonderful alphabets, also from the Everyday collection. And then finally, we've made a mosaic with the Mosaic. So really simple, really straightforward, and of course 3 embossing folders we've looked at. The Everyday collection is, well, I mean, you've probably seen it already, but as you can see on screen now, there are so many different options. We've got some wonderful colorized, got a couple of stunning alphabets. Everyday, I think there's something for everybody there as well. So don't forget to check out the Tim Holtz Hub, check out Instagram, Facebook, all the usual places. And of course, Tim's website. See some of the wonderful things that his makers have made using these folders and the rest of the collection. It's so inspirational. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you again soon.